Computer. Welcome, 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 everyone, to another Sunday of When Black Women Gather. And today I'm happy. My name is Helen Higginbotham. I'm the founder of When Black Women Gather. And today I'm happy to have as my guest, my special, special guest, a new friend. What do you say, Mr. Neal, that we're not, what do you say? We're not strangers.
Friends don't
We're,
meet, they reacquaint.
yes. Okay. So, anyway, Omar Neal was formerly the mayor of Tuskegee. Recently, I took a group of folks, women plus one guy, first guy on our trip. We went down to Alabama and did a southern trek. And one of the cities that we visited was Tuskegee. If you haven't been there, I strongly recommend it. I'm sure Omar will share with you some highlights about Tuskegee. But while we were there, we had the pleasure of meeting. I had the pleasure of meeting him, and he was so gracious that he shared with us his good friend, Bernard Lafayette, Dr. Bernard Lafayette, who was the chief of staff for Martin Luther King at the time of his assassination. So that was quite I won't even say a treat. It was just a wonderful opportunity to get to meet with him and hear him, tell some of his stories and experiences. So thank you for that, Omar. That
Hmm.
was a treasure. But today, and then Omar has a lot of other things that he does that he'll tell us about. He has a regular radio program that you had for 35 years.
34, yeah, going on 35, yeah.
And he continues that now. But you always did a webinar in the background, is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Um, so he's going to talk to us about what he does. His organization is called You Got the Power. And that's what I really thought it was a good time for us to kick off the year talking about the power that we have. And then this whole thing happened with Venezuela. And I think it's just even more reason for us to reinforce the sense of power that we have as people. So how's that,
That
my
sounds
good friend?
wonderful. I'm gonna take you with me everywhere. You so you can introduce me all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a lot, but tell us all about. I mean, and one of the things that I really, and we probably won't get to talk about it today, but it's one thing that I really found interesting when I Googled him. And I don't know if Stephanie Dyer is on this call or not, but she's the one who connected me. It's all about connections, right? You put out in
Hmm.
the universe what you want, and it happens. So I have talking to Stephanie. I mentioned that I've been trying to get in touch with Lafayette, and I hadn't been able to. She said, "I know somebody." And, then when I spoke with Omar, he was like, and he just happened to mention Dr. Lafayette. And I was like, wow, they're trying to reach him. He said, consider it done. So, yeah, so it's all about, putting out into the universe what you want, and it comes back to you many times. So, um, but yeah, so one of the things that I love, though, that we're not going to talk about today probably is the fact that um, um, Omar had an uncle who, or maybe more than one relative, who was
Hmm.
involved in the Tuskegee experiment. And what they told us not to call it that. What are we supposed to call it?
You're supposed to call it the United States Public Health study on untreated syphilis for of Negro men. And it was done in Tuskegee. It was not the Tuskegee study. It was the United States Public Health Service Department or service study, and that's what it was about. So we don't want to put that on Tuskegee. It wasn't Tuskegee. It was done to Tuskegee, not about Tuskegee.
Absolutely. And it's important. And the thing that I want you to come back and talk about on another time is just when the whole thing was happening with COVID and people were being mandated to take this vaccination, and people in Tuskegee were like, I don't think so. I never even thought about it, never even put it together. So, but that's a whole other conversation. But today we're just going to talk about what's happening and what's on your mind today, Mr. Omar. And of course, we want to talk about this whole thing that's happening in Venezuela and how it affects us as a Black community.
Thanks, Helen, so much, and thanks to all who have gathered here today on the first Sunday of this new year, 2026. It is a divine pleasure to be here and to just share because I much prefer a dialogue than a monologue. I believe that we all are possessors of some truth, and as we bring our truths together, then and only then do we get closer to the truth. So I much rather have an opportunity to hear your thoughts. And we're in some very, very difficult times, and that's probably the best I can say. It's worse than that, but I don't know quite what word to use. But we are experiencing turbulence as if we've never experienced it before. We're drinking from a fire hydrant with all of the things that are happening, bombarding us. But I don't want us to lose hope because this equilibrium allows for growth. And what I think we are experiencing, at least what I hope we are experiencing, is the death uh, rattle of many of the systems that have held us back and have been a barrier to equality and justice. So this equilibrium, whether or not we like it or not, sometimes is a benefit. I don't know whether or not I can say that having this president in office is good, but what he's doing is revealing to America and to the world who America is. I was reading something, Helen, you were reading it as well, where a person who is Caucasian said that Donald Trump is not really the problem, that Donald Trump is merely an avatar, kind of a mascot for who America is. People see themselves in him. If you are a misogynist, then you see yourself in him. If you like to swindle people, then you see yourself in him. If you're a racist, then you so he kind of represents how people see themselves, and so he gives them permission, if you will, to act out and to speak more publicly about the things that they feel and have held in terms of belief systems for many, many years. And so I think it's important to note that it's not about Donald Trump. I think it's important to know that it's deeper than that. And so if we just focus on Donald Trump, I think we're missing the fundamental reasons why we are experiencing what we are experiencing. As it relates to Venezuela, again, I think that is what I call a WMD. That's a weapon of mass distraction. Again, it is not new that this administration and others who are associated with this administration have had their eyes on Venezuela in terms of its oil reserve. As many people may not be aware, that Venezuela has the largest oil reserve in the world, and it's right next to us. And so to use as a pretext drugs coming from Venezuela is, we know, is not true. Because if we were concerned about drugs, then we would not have just pardoned the former president of Honduras, who was convicted of bringing over $400 million worth of cocaine into this country. And so we know that it's not that. And so we now know, because it was said recently in Mar-a-Lago, that we want the oil. And not only that, we're going to occupy Venezuela. We're going to run it. And Marco Rubio and all them other people behind me, they're going to be the ones that run it. Now, understand, this is the Secretary of State that we're talking about will run another country when his obligation and responsibility is to protect the interests of this country. It looked like Marco Rubio was hearing it for the first time, the way that he looked when he made that statement. But when you make statements like that, being the president of the United States, it takes it takes on a whole nother meaning. You just cannot make statements and people don't take you for what you say as face value. And so we recognize that we're in a different space, even though there are things that he's done that we can call just egregious and draconian. This ups the ante when you go into a sovereign nation and take out its leaders, and we know that's happened in Panama, and we've done it before. So we know that we're capable of doing that, but this is a whole nother another thing. And so it's important for us now to step back, call a time out, and begin to look at, well, why now? Let me see if I can unpack a few things. Um, don't underestimate what people will do when they're trying to change the news cycle in terms of what people are talking about. As you know, the Jeffrey Epstein um, file has not been fully uh, shared with the American public, and there's still thousands and hundreds of thousands of documents that have not been shared. Now, we do know that Congress said you should share them, and President signed it, but yet and still, there's still hundreds of thousands of documents that's not been shared. So to distract from that, because just think about it, the president could possibly be, and I don't know what's in the files that concern the president, but we do know that he's in the files, and he could very possibly be a part of the largest pedophile ring in the United States history, over 1,000 young girls. And if that's the case, then we're talking about high crimes and misdemeanors and moral turpitude issues that could constitute impeachment. And it certainly would be an embarrassment to this country if our commander in chief, the standard bearer for the United States, is a pedophile.
Mm.
Right. So they don't want you to know that. So even though he signed that he would release all of the information, it's not done it yet, would give us some indication that there is something not favorable to him in those files. The other thing is on Tuesday, which is January 6th, and the images of January 6th will be replayed, and we will revisit that horrific day where the citadel of democracy was attacked by its own people, which is an insurrection that was spurred on, instigated by the president himself. And not to this not to be lost on us, that over 4 hours after they had invaded the Capitol, he sat back and watched it, where people were asking him, please do something. Do something. They were begging him, and he wouldn't do anything. Now, this is the same president that's sending the National Guard into cities now that he said he wants to clean up, but yet and still, when it really mattered, when when the when the Congress was under attack and his vice president was being sought after to hang him,
Mhm.
he did nothing. And then to add insult to injury, the first act when he retained office was to pardon over 1,500 people who had engaged in an insurrection in this country. And so that's going to be presented in the next few days. And so we need a news story that will take that off of the front pages and put something else to keep us distracted. It's a multi facet approach to distraction. When we look at the fact that many of us will pay dividend, will be paying more for our insurance, some
Yes,
double, some triple, right? And in the next month, and that is going to be on the table. People are still paying too much for eggs, if you will. And there are other areas that people are suffering. And so when you can invade a country, talk about taking its oil, taking it over, that's a big story that sometimes move you away from the things that really impact you on a direct level. And so when I see this, I don't see just what is. I see, well, why is it? And then more importantly, why is it now? And I believe that these things are the impetus to these kinds of things. I'll stop there, and I like to have a conversation. I'm a talk show host, so that's a long introduction, but that's kind of where I am on that.
no, that's beautiful. So one thing I forgot to say before we got started is that Neal does want an interactive conversation. So, if I can't see your hand, feel free to unmute and interject. But if you can raise your electronic hand, that's great. People on the phone, I always forget about you. So please, let me know that you're out there if you want to say something. One of the things that I find kind of, well, everything you said is point on 100%. But I hadn't thought about it until we spoke about it that Tuesday is January 6th. And not only is it January 6th, but it's going to be the first January 6th
Hmm.
where Trump is in office. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does something to commemorate it as though it's some, just like Charlie Kirk's passing is something that, is more than than we ever thought it would be. I could see him trying to memorialize it in some kind of way. I mean, I don't know what you think about that. Do you think so?
Well,
Try to glamorize
I mean,
it?
he's already done that. I mean, so that wouldn't be anything new. I
Mhm.
think he's going to try not to bring much attention to it. Um, uh, because the optics of people with his sign, uh, Trump signs, going into the Capitol, defecating in the Capitol, those kinds of things will be revisited. And then to say that he's a person of law and order, and the first thing that he does is pardons everybody, regardless of what they've done,
Right.
who've been convicted, right, in the court of law, but he pardons everybody. I think that's going to be hard to sell that as being a good thing.
Mhm. They seem to be able to finagle whatever they want, and people are they falling for it hook, line, and sinker, or they're just not wanting to believe the reality of what's in their face? Because as you say, which is obviously the truth, that Trump is the face of all of this. I mean, this has been in the making for a long time, and it
Hmm.
didn't just
Where you
happen.
going?
I'm sorry,
No,
but
somebody was unmuted and was talking. That's fine.
yeah, so I think that, it's he is just the face of it. And for us to keep saying, and Trump is, first of all, I see him very much like I saw Ronald Reagan. Um, just what they say is the pig with the lipstick. That was Trump. I mean, that was Reagan, the pig with the lipstick. But Trump is just a pig. Like he doesn't even try and clean it up. And he is emboldening people who have not felt that they had a voice before to just be as brash and corrupt as they can be. And I think that he's taken the sheets off of a lot of people in America. And America is having to look at itself for what it is. And the whole world is seeing America for what it is.
Mm.
We were talking before we came on online that people in Caribbean countries are stuck there because they can't fly out. So there are going to be far-reaching effects from this whole thing beyond the obvious. So who do you think is going to be running Venezuela?
Well, I don't know that to be the case, but let me harken back to something that you just mentioned, and let you know that they are organizing and restructuring power systems to maintain them and as a minority status. That's what they are having to do now because demographics are shifting, and if things remain at the trajectory that it is, that in the next 15 to 20 years, the people who have been classified as a majority will no longer be in that capacity. In a democratic country where, well, we know this, we don't have a democracy, but where the majority is supposed to rule, then that would be difficult for people who are classified as a minority. And we know that how minorities or people who have been classified as minorities have been treated in this country, and they're trying to safeguard themselves from that fate. And so they're restructuring systems, even things that are non-constitutional, to kind of avoid uh, some reciprocation of what they have done to themselves. And so that is part of it. But let me say, as it relates to Venezuela, they don't know what they are going to do. I think this was not very well thought out,
Mhm,
not very well planned. It
mhm.
was a knee-jerk reaction. Now the obvious is that they want to control the oil. But there's a saying, and it was said when they invaded Iraq. It says, if you break it, you own it," and
Right.
that's exactly what we have done. We've broken it, and so therefore we own it. Now, the vice president of Venezuela has now said that she is not with this, although the president said that she was all for it. She has made a public pronouncement that
Yes.
this is not what she wants, and that she wants Maduro and his wife to be returned. So
Yes.
so now all of the spinning that there is, wide support for what transpired by taking a person. Although you can, again, I want to reiterate, no one, I know I'm not supporting Maduro. I think that he is as horrific as many of the other dictators around the country. So I don't want to appear to be supporting him, and I'm not.
Right.
But I am supporting the fact that sovereign countries should handle their own business,
Sure.
and that America does not have the right, legally or otherwise, to be the police of the world.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying.
I
All right,
agree.
go ahead.
Totally. And even with there's so obviously well, we in Miss Machado, I can't think of Carolina Machado. She was
Hmm.
supposedly the person who won the election
Opposition,
against
opposition. Hmm.
right. And then she wins the Nobel Peace Prize and she says that she dedicates it to Donald Trump, which I didn't quite get. So now that she is in quote unquote a position to if the things are happening fairly, then if she's an opposition party and if you're doing this for the good of the Venezuelan people, then give them what they want, which would be her. Oh, but no, they don't respect her. She's a nice lady. And all of that is just and then it was very fitting when the vice president says, nah, Maduro is the president here, and that's how it is. That's who we respect as our president. So it's all very interesting the way this is turning out. Um, but I don't know if it has Machado. Has anybody on here heard? Has Machado made a statement? I don't know if I've heard anything from her. Did you,
No, no,
Omar?
no, I haven't. But I do know that President Trump said that she's too weak to run the Venezuela.
And she's
That's
a woman.
right,
Of
right,
course, he
right.
would not.
Which right, absolutely. But that's what he now I heard him say that she was not the one to do
Right.
that. All right,
Because
and
they
so
don't respect her. And
right,
here's this guy who's totally not respected here in this country. So when is he going to step down?
right.
If that's your logic,
Well, let's not let Congress off the hook, right?
that's true. Yeah.
The abdication of the first branch of government, right,
Mhm.
is mind blowing. I have
Yeah.
never seen
Right.
such sycophantic activity in my life, where
Mhm.
people bow down to another person to whom there must should be checks and balances, right?
Right.
But you have a whole form of government, a whole branch of government, right, who has
Mhm.
abdicated their responsibility,
Yes.
acquiesced to another form of government, which completely shifts this whole notion of balance of power, right?
Two branches of government.
And so we should not let them off the hook. This Democrats and Republicans,
Mhm.
everybody should be up in arms, right?
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
But we don't see it. You know, they do it in certain circles where they're comfortable, right, in doing it, and they feel that somehow they will be heard if they speak out. Well, if you are not going to speak out, then you shouldn't be in Congress. If you are afraid, you should not be a leader. We got a saying in the South. We said if you can't run with the big dogs, stay on the poach, right? Right? That's how we feel, right? That being in Alabama, we've had to deal with racism up close. And if you're afraid, don't come out here. If don't run for office, right?
Mhm.
You have not only that, you swear to the Constitution to defend it from enemies both foreign and domestic. And whenever that is being threatened, you have a constitutional responsibility and obligation to address it. And not to do it is abdication, and you should not be in Congress. And I don't care who you are.
I agree totally. But we've got two branches of government that have conceded because so has the Supreme Court.
Oh, for sure.
We no longer have three branches of government. We have one. And it's interesting because when I listen to even some of the Venezuelans I've heard, when they describe the situation, they're describing a situation where, Maduro was a dictator and you couldn't say this and you couldn't do that. Like, where are we going in this country? At the same time, that's what they're trying to achieve here. Um, so it's just very interesting. So Trump taking over Venezuela is going to change what for them? I'm missing, and I'm being facetious, obviously, but I'm missing the point here.
Well, part again, I want us to always remind ourselves that this is a weapon of mass distraction.
Yeah,
Right, right. That's one thing. Now, obviously, they want the oil. They want the five. He said there are five big oil companies that's going to go
find it.
and develop the infrastructure for the oil so that they can produce more oil, right? For them to rape the country, which is what it is,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so he says the quiet parts out loud, right? Right? He says those things that they talk about in the smoke filled rooms out loud. So that's what it's about. It's about
Mhm.
power. It's about oil, which is fine money, right? It's about wealth, right? And the shifting of wealth. That's what it's about, and maintaining it in a very small group of people. That's what we are dealing with. And until we understand that this is what we're doing. The other thing is that this is not about individuals. This we're talking about systems are being created, right, to perpetuate themselves for generations. And so we need to be mindful of how these systems are being formed that will maintain and inculcate themselves into what we call as those forms of government and other things, departmental levels, all levels that can persist even when there's a new administration.
Yeah.
That's what we have to deal with as well. Okay.
We're being desensitized to accept these things at some point as
Absolutely.
the
That's
new
what's the
norm,
part. That's
as
just
the
new
new
norm. That's
norm.
and they're chipping at it and they want to see how far they can go, right? And
Absolutely.
then they go so far and if you say nothing, then they say, okay, we can go farther, right? Right. And it's designed to check, test the tolerance of America, right? That's
Which
what
I
they're
think a
doing.
lot of that happened during COVID. I think they were pushing, they were testing to
Right.
see how far can we push them? How far can we nudge them? And we
Right.
failed miserably.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Brenda, you have a question or a
Yes,
comment?
yes, I have a question and a comment.
Mhm.
I'm so glad you're having this conversation because if you listen to the news networks, there's so much you're not getting. And I listened to Democracy Now! Early this morning, and one of the journalists who was there said it's people are really out in the streets in Venezuela, and that he was kidnapped. They're calling this kidnapping. It's not that he was taken, he's
Yeah,
kidnapped.
thank
And this
you.
is they intend to resist this and to hold on. And we're not getting too much of that in the news.
I
The other
so
thing,
appreciate you excuse me, I appreciate you clarifying because the press here keeps saying that Maduro was captured. I'm like,
right,
can you stop misleading us? He was kidnapped,
he was
Hmm.
no
kidnapped.
captured.
He
Yeah, but
was
anyway, I'm
kidnapped.
sorry.
And the other thing, this is really the playbook for when you look at what happened in World War One and World War Two, the playbook for imperialism, for how countries in Europe divided Africa, took over Africa, the playbook for what they did, even in Panama, what they attempted to do in Guyana. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on how far do you think he will go. I don't know how accurate it is because we can't trust even the news on the internet either. But I did hear that Burkina Faso there was an attempt to to there was shots heard near where the leader lives, the president lives, and people came out in the streets last night. I just feel they're going after. This is just one part. They're going into night. They're going to try to break up the pact between Niger and Mali and Somalia. They're going to the Nigerian going into Nigeria to save the Christians. That was like, really, come on, save the Christians.
Hmm.
And
Black Christians at
yeah,
that.
Black Christians. This was about oil. So it feels like we're rolling back, and it's just interesting. I'm reading now the biography of Kwame Nkrumah called The
Hmm.
Second
Hmm.
Emancipation.
Hmm.
And it's just a reminder of how deliberate and intentional the powers were with respect to dividing up the continent and taking over and depleting them of their resources. So my question, or I'd like to hear some thoughts on how far do you think that this administration will go? And secondly, just with respect to the woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize, I heard when she won that she placated Trump because she did not want to alienate him, that she really was thinking about the future. And perhaps she was thinking that if this happened, she wanted to be the person to be in place to take over
Hmm.
Venezuela. And what
Hmm.
has he done? He's brushed her aside.
Hmm.
So those are just hearing your thoughts on that. How far is he going to go? And what do you this is really, really a kidnapping. And
Hmm.
I think, how do we get that language out?
Well, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, one is it was not authorized by Congress, right? They said this was uh, a um, a police operation, which is not the United States. So it was absolutely, they used the military, so it was war. They did not get authorization from Congress, which is the only one that can declare war unless there's some imminent danger to this country or our interests. Uh, so, so, so yes, it was kidnapping. That's exactly what it was, right? Now, secondly, let me go to your other point. What, how far do I think he will go? Let me say how far I think
Let's keep that in.
the powers at B will go.
Yeah, that one is beautiful. Yeah,
Okay.
hey man, hold on. I got somebody needs to mute. Someone needs to mute. I can't see who it is, but please mute your phone. Thank you. All right,
All right.
sorry.
Okay, no problem. Let me say this. We have a saying in South, and I always talk about the South because that's where I am, right? That I wouldn't put anything past him, right? Let me say this. When I say this, let me be unequivocal. I would not put anything past them in terms of what they are capable of doing. They have demonstrated they will do anything, and that they care. They have no boundaries. They have no parameters by which they extract their actions that's based in justice or morality. Right. So to answer your question, nothing. I don't think I think they'll do anything to include murder, kidnapping, torture, whatever it is. I mean, they had just had a torture camp that they were trying to put on 60 Minutes, right? And to let you see what America's doing. Uh, and they pulled it because they didn't want America to see how bad America is acting and the things that they are doing around the world. And so yes, we are in some very difficult times, but because I believe that this, and this is important for me to say this. I believe that what happens to you is based on two factors, right? Your activity, something you do, or your passivity, something you allow, right? In America, all of us, we've allowed this to take place, right? And the onus is on us because once you know, then you owe, right? And you can't sit back and talk about what other folk are doing or not doing when in your space you're doing nothing. Not some people didn't even vote, right? Now talking about how bad things are, right?
Right. So
Right?
should we be out protesting in the streets? And when I look at this, I'm looking at the possibility of a world war,
Absolutely.
because I just this is where the possibility of World War III, and now we have the nuclear powers, and it's very frightening. And
You go ahead, Brenda. I'm sorry.
so I guess I'm not saying what can we do? I mean,
No, part of it is all of the above, right? Protesting one, everybody that's not registered to vote should just go out tomorrow and just register to vote all over this country, right? To let the leadership know there's something different about this, right? Everybody needs to have a family huddle and canvass your family. Anybody that's not registered to vote needs to go register to vote now in advance, right? Now this is the time that we people are running for Congress, and this is the kind of thing, and we also want the people who are in office to know that we like Santa Claus. We taking a list, we're checking it twice. We're going to find out who's naughty or nice, right? You got it? And we understand the best indicator what a person will do is what a person has done. If you talking about going back to Congress, what did you do when you were in Congress? We are going to be fruit inspectors, right? Not talk, not rhetoric, fruit inspectors.
right,
And if you did not do anything while you're there, don't ask us for our vote again.
right. So you're talking about accountability, and how do we
And
hold
it
the
has to be
elected
accountability. He would
elected
not be
officials?
able to do this unless it were people who bow down. If Congress has not done its job, and had Congress done its job, even when the impeachment taken place, we wouldn't even be dealing with this, not like this. So now we need to stop just talking about Donald Trump. He is, yes, a problem, but he's not the problem. He's a problem.
Face of it. He's the face
He's
of
the
it.
avatar. He's the mascot for this
Mhm.
system.
Right. One of the things that was very disturbing to me, and I've said it a million times, I'll say it a million more times. I feel I would love to hear, like, what are the Democrats saying right now? What are they saying? Because I fault them that we're in this position, and not totally, but I fault them that we're here because I felt like we dodged a bullet in 2020. And the Democrats talked a lot about what was their thing? That they were saving the soul of America, but their actions were not that of a party vested in saving the soul of America. I felt very strongly that when Joe Biden got in office, that the focus, the sole focus, well, sole focus, the primary focus should have been to make sure that whether it's Donald Trump or anybody else, that the United States would never have been put at that kind of risk again. And instead, they resumed office and, business as usual,
Hmm.
statesmanship, decorum. And those things are policies or that's behavior of the past. So then my question to you, Omar, I don't know if you want to talk about the Democrats specifically, but do you think that we currently
I
have,
have no problem talking about Democrats, Republicans,
okay,
everybody. We be talking about truth, right? And
do we
and
have,
and 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 that's part of the problem. We have been playing political footsie too
right,
much, and we
I
don't
agree,
tell the truth. Speak the
right,
truth. It's not about black or white. It's about wrong or right, right? It ain't about politics. It ain't left or right, right? It's wrong or right, right? And the point of the matter is, if you have not done your job, because Democrats have a role in this as well, right? And you cannot be Millie Mouse and weak and talking about you gonna protect something. That's part of the problem. We've been too political. We have normalized this. This is not normal. You cannot use those old tactics that you've used historically and they work. They don't work now. Those rules do not apply. And that's important for people to understand. This is not the same time. This is a break glass moment,
right.
and we need to act like it.
So my question, which you're kind of answering already, is
Hmm.
do you think that the leadership that we have in place at this moment in the
No,
Democratic Party
no.
are okay?
I don't think I no no
Yeah.
absolutely. I don't think
Do they have what is required to
they speak
restore?
very well. They're so
Yeah,
articulate. They talk
right.
about things. They are so articulate. But no, this is not effective. We recognize it's not effective. And the Democratic Party right now has a 17% approval rating.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I did.
17%. Why do you
Wow.
think that? It's because they see Donald Trump, who has 30 something percent approval rating, over the Democratic Party with all of the stuff he's doing,
I did not know that.
right?
Yeah,
And you're talking about winning because you just want to be the alternative to Donald Trump.
right,
That's buzzard politics.
right. Which I don't think will get us through another election. I do think, well, but
Go
people
ahead.
can't keep going to the polls saying that they're going to vote the lesser of two evils, or I could run against Donald Trump and probably win because people are just like, I don't want him anymore. But that's not enough to sustain the country.
Donald Trump is
Or
not going to run again. I mean, although he thinks he can, but that's not going to happen. But so I didn't want to cut you off. So it's not about Donald Trump. It's about
right,
systems, right?
right,
That Donald Trump said that he didn't know anything about Project 2025,
Hmm.
right? And everything to the letter is going according to the plan for Project 2025. Just go back and look at it. See, that's
right.
something we disassociate ourselves with the things that we know, which is part of the solution to understanding what is we're dealing with. Just take the Project 25 and see everything 2025 and see everything that they said, and that's exactly what's happening just as they said it.
Mhm. That is true. Brenda,
right?
did you have anything more you wanted to ask?
Um, no, I wanted to say just your comments on why um they're disrespecting the Nobel laureate. Yes, said you said we can do all of the above, but that was about it. Just more conversation on that. It's very frightening. As I said, this is the playbook. This is the
Yeah.
playbook. And
The
I
And
just
you
reason,
know what's interesting is how people have just, which is a whole sociological study. Anybody in here who does, like the way that people have just fallen in line. Yeah. I think that is so worth um, researching and understanding, like the human dynamics of, like we know the history, even like what's happening in Israel. Like we already know this, but still people are just falling in line and justifying it. And the other thing that's kind of interesting is that what's happening now, what's the difference between now and what happened in World War One and other, is that we have live access to it on social media plays a role in it.
hmm
Whereas
hmm
before, they could control the information that we got. You got it from the AP or the UPI. That was it. Everybody got the same news. And now, of course, you have to decipher what's credible and what isn't, but we needed to be doing that all along. But they cannot. So let me ask you that, Omar. Do you think that given that the only way we're getting a narrative other than the one that the administration wants us to have is through the internet, they're buying up all of the mainstream media. Do you think that soon they will limit our access to the internet?
they own the internet too. But I mean, most of the people who own these platforms are part of what they do. Now, there are some independent platforms that it's emerging. But the Facebook and the Instagrams
Their
and
own,
all of the other they are owned by the same people who were sitting up there at his inauguration,
right?
right? Who have made just gazillions of dollars since he has been in office, right?
Hmm.
So how much and with the algorithms and ways to relegate you to just small groups, right? They have that on lock. And yes, that's part of it. But let me go back, Helen, to what you were saying as to why people have seem to acquiesce. And I think that it is as simple as fear. People are afraid. And
Hmm.
it's not without consequence when you speak as boldly as we're speaking today. It's not without consequence. We know that. But fear has a way of holding you hostage on I can't plantation, right? I say fear is an acronym for false evidence appearing real, right? And once you know, then you owe. To him much is given, much is required. And if you are in leadership role, you should speak boldly the truth, right? Because truth crushed to the earth shall rise again, and that the arc of the moral universe is wide and long, but it ever bends towards justice. It may not even happen in your lifetime, right? But you need to be able to say, I stood for something. Because if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. And if you don't live for something, you die for nothing.
can I just so how do you what can you say to people about how you distinguish between what's real and what's not real and on the internet and the impact of AI? I get information, I get messages from people who it's obvious that they have not done the research, the background research to see who's generating the information and how credible it is. How do we get people or the public to become much more critical about what they're receiving and to do that investigation?
You know, light and darkness cannot occupy the same space at the same time, right?
You're a preacher.
No, I'm not.
I'm writing down some
Right?
gems here.
Right? You see what I'm saying? So you don't have to curse the darkness. Just shine the light. And that's what we are called to do. Just shine the light.
light and darkness cannot occupy the same space at the same time.
Yeah.
She's gonna have you working soon, Omar, just so you know. This is not the last you're going to see or hear from Brenda, I promise you. But and that's so true, especially with AI. It looks so credible. And the thing with AI also is now that it's out there, people can use it for an excuse. We can see it could be a real picture of, somebody doing something terribly egregious, and it's just too easy to say that's AI. And how do you prove it? Some people say they can look at things and tell that they're AI. I have certainly been fooled.
Hmm. Well, we're in another space. That's true because what is real can be replicated and edited to make it seem that you said something you didn't even say.
That's
Right,
true. And they
right,
get your voice. They
right,
can
right. If They can
replicate
they
your
can get
voice.
just a few words that you say and construct an entire dissertation on something you didn't
Never
believe,
said.
but and say you said it, right? So
Absolutely.
that's what we're in. But see, it cannot be an individual. Part of what I believe needs to take place now is that we don't just have a group of people. It needs to be a movement. And there's a
Mhm.
difference between a movement and people in motion, right? Right? People in motion seek to facilitate an agenda primarily for themselves, where a movement has to do with a more moral aim to bring about a more perfect, not union, but a more egalitarian society, a fairer society where justice prevail and truth uh, prevail, right? And they say it's justice rolled down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream, right? That's the kind of thing that we all should be espousing, right? In whatever space we're in. Many of us are working in places where we see injustice and we turn our heads, right?
We do. We
in
do.
fear that somehow if I say something, then I can jeopardize my position here
Mhm.
versus speaking up for what is right, regardless of where you are, right?
Exactly.
And that's what perpetuates it is our ability to have tolerance of it. When we saw him first go into Los Angeles, right? We knew that Chicago and Memphis and it's going to keep going because the pushback was not significant. Let me say this. We will only be free when our desire to be free is greater than the oppressor's desire to oppress us. Let me
Mm.
make that point clear. We will only be free when our desire to be free is
Mhm.
greater than the oppressor's desire to oppress us.
That makes sense. Except for in Tennessee, they did steal the ICE vehicles. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's temporary stuff.
I know, but
That don't
still,
that
it was
doesn't
better
stop.
than just,
That don't stop.
yeah.
That doesn't that's a this is not just in an area. This is something that they're doing all over the country, right? And they're doing it towards people of color,
No
right? Understand that this is an attack on people of color,
question. No
right?
question.
And we have to tell our white friends that this too, because we have part of our trying to save relationships with our white colleagues and friends. We have watered down how the truth, right? And so we must be honest and say this is an attack of people of color, and we want to know where you stand on it.
And stand in that and not
Right,
be apologetic about
right,
it,
right.
not be overly concerned with other people's level of comfort, certainly not at the expense of your own.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree
I
totally.
see Cece's hand is up. It's been up for a
Yes.
while.
What you got, Miss Johnson? What you got? I was trying to read these comments because there are also questions in the comments, but go ahead,
Okay.
Claudette.
So, to me, looking at this over the past year, Helen and I had almost written our own Project 2025 as we saw these things playing out and what the impact could be. And the only bottom line that I see, the common denominator is the economics, identifying who the beneficiaries are in
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
All the money.
That's true.
Long-term action against, is it Chevron, whether it's Exxon, whether it's Nike, anybody who's on the end of the table, who's getting the lion's share of the benefit from this as a community across the globe, that's who we need to be looking at, stopping the flow of monies. Because the ships that got pirated with all that crude oil, what they're looking to do is to generate the rare earth minerals out of them. That's why they're interested in going into Greenland. That's why they're interested in
Mm-hmm.
going into Burkina Faso. It's the rare earth minerals, whether it's for the cell phones or for the military or whatever other commercial efforts that they're using these items for. We need to understand and scale it down to what's the bottom line and stop supporting these companies that are making the advances with this. I saw some news this morning that Tesla has been displaced in the UK by BBD, which is the Chinese version of the electronic automobile. And we need to be looking at situations like that, where these companies that are hurting our communities, that are impacting us, we need to stop supporting them. I personally have been trying to figure out who's selling the gaiters that the ICE people are using to cover their faces. Because I think whatever company that is, we need to make sure that we're not buying their products. I hear rumors that it's Nike, emphasis rumor. I've been trying to find out. And I recently learned about a federal government site that'll tell you who's getting these awards. So I'm going to be digging into it. But I think that's the way that we have to go. The vote is there, but we're being disenfranchised from that. But they want our dollars. They want our Black dollars. They want everybody's dollars. And if we control our purse strings, that'll help us to get the power back.
I
Just
agree 1,000% with you. In fact, I say amen. You can pass the plate now and benediction.
It's not just the
Go ahead.
it's not
I'm
just
sorry.
the rare earth that we're talking about in Burkina Faso. They're concerned because you have leaders in Burkina Faso,
Mm-hmm.
Niger, and
Mm-hmm.
Mali,
That's true.
who's going to bring our continent back, our countries back together on the
Mm-hmm.
continent. And that's what they don't want. They want to get rid of him. So by going into Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
northwest Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
which is right there at Burkina Faso, the
Mm-hmm.
plan, not the Christians, but to be able to invade and get rid of Traore.
Yeah. Any strong leadership,
Okay.
particularly that's what it's about. Anything that is able to generate
So we
a
have,
force of movement
this will take us to
against
where
their
we have
agenda, they will
tomorrow.
attack any
It's
force.
no meat. So you got
Yeah.
Wait
Go
a
ahead.
minute. Somebody, I don't know why I can't see who that is. You need to mute everybody, please. Please mute. But go ahead. I'm sorry, Omar.
No, that's I'm saying that any strong leadership is being targeted now.
Correct.
And that's why we have to protect our leaders. I mean,
hmm
Bob Marley say, "How long will they kill our prophets while we
Yes.
stand aside and look?" Some say this just a part of it. We got to fulfill the book. You know, the redemption song was powerful to
Right.
understand that we have to protect leaders, people who will put their bodies on the line
No
for
shit.
us. We have to protect them and say, "Not them. You will not touch them."
And
Right?
that's why Marley isn't here now because
Right.
he got taken out.
That's exactly right. So we know they take out leaders. We know that. That's why we need to have more organic movements where there is no identifiable leader, but
Right.
everybody is moving towards a common cause, right? That's what we need to be able to do. We don't need martyrs, right? We need people who can contribute as a group, as a whole, towards a movement of change, social and otherwise.
You know, that whole thing about protecting the leader, one of the things that came to mind, first of all, let me say it was in the middle of the night and I saw some news flash that said that there had been an explosion in Venezuela, and I'm thinking, I knew right then and there it had something to do with the United States, that it wasn't just an explosion. But going back to protecting our leaders, one of the things that also came to mind for me is who in Maduro's inner circle allowed that to happen, right? Because we've heard that there have been attempts at terrori, and he's got himself right now surrounded with a tight knit group. So hopefully that will continue. But and we
Technology,
know,
technology supersedes all of that. They know where you
yeah,
are. They can
absolutely.
find you. There are people inside who kind of give people information, intel, but the technology now allows you to see where people breathing, right, from satellites, and imagery, uh, is at that level, so we know they don't have to depend on the ground intelligence to do
Yeah.
things.
Well,
Uh,
COINTELPRO's
I mean,
gonna look different.
COINTELPRO is another thing, that this all of this is recycled. Now, understand, none of this is new. And I think
Right.
if we look at, COINTELPRO, I mean, if you look at, when they did the Kernel report, I mean, all of these things, we were we are revisiting, if you will, right? So put in context, historical context, what is
Yeah,
happening. There is nothing new under the sun.
that's true. Which
I
is
don't
We
know
got a
where
lot of
disturbing.
people who I see a lot of people hands, and
Yeah,
I'm
I
not.
see. Let's Kilthea, what's your question, babe? How are you?
Good. How are you, Miss Higgy?
Good, I'm
Good
good.
to see you. Brother Neal, I had a question about just what's happening now in terms of shining the light, in terms of making a movement. What does shining a light look like? And not just for you, I guess other people might have some thinking. And what movements already exist, so that we're not um, getting together to create a wheel. Where can we jump in and support movements that already exist?
Unfortunate. I don't see a movement, personally,
Hmm.
that is really addressing with the kind of force necessary to repel what is taking place. Uh, I see people who I thought were courageous people who have kowtowed down and have become sycophants to this administration. And so I don't have a lot of confidence that we have a movement now, an opposition movement. We talked about the Democratic Party, which
Hmm.
should very well be that opposition movement, but you don't see them out there, at the level of intensity in terms of the conversation and the mobilization of the people at the level that it should be commensurate with the threat that exists to not only this so-called democracy but to global order.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. In terms of, what I guess what might it look like to shine a light? And also, can you talk a little bit about what happened earlier in 2025 in terms of the boycotts that
Mhm.
happened in response, and and how effective you think they might have been?
I think the Target boycott was probably the best example of what it is we can do if we stick together, right? And
Hmm.
we need to, I think Ms. Roberts was correct when she said we need to follow the money, and we need to see who is the beneficiary
Hmm.
of what's taking place, and then they must be targeted. We must make an example of them. You cannot, you cannot contribute to your own demise. Let me say this: I was interviewing many years ago uh, Rosa Parks, and we were sitting down and we had a conversation, and I mentioned in this last month, May the 70th anniversary of the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama. And so I was reminded of that when we make this statement. But I asked her, I said, why did you all boycott the buses? And I thought it was a rhetorical question. So I went on to say, was it to financially break them? And she said, oh, no, that's not why. Well, that threw me off. Now, you have to realize I was going to go on a line of questioning according to that, right? She said, no, that's not why. I said, well, Ms. Parks, why? Now, I'm gonna phrase it like I like to phrase it, but in essence, this is what she said. She said the first step in any liberation process is that the oppressed must first withdraw their participation from their own degradation.
Yeah.
Right? We can't tell other folk to stop doing something when we are doing it to ourselves. As long as we were getting on those buses and going to the back of the bus, we were contributing to our own degradation. And that's what we need to stop doing now. We spend money. We are consumers. We indiscriminate. We don't care where the money go. We don't have an economy. We got money, but don't have an economy in the Black community. And we're the only people who don't have an economy. Money don't even stay in our community on a few hours. Right? That we have to retrain ourselves to understand that any people to be respected must have an economy. That's the first thing.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Simpson, you have a question or a comment? Thank you for joining us.
Just a comment. I had been aware of this before, but I was just so transfixed by this, disinformation on what's going on in Venezuela. It's like our problem is collectively, we don't have enough imagination to realize how low these people can go. Who thinks about tearing down the East Wing of the White House and nobody has a comment? We blew up 30 boats at least from Venezuela who could never make it to Florida. And even if they had the most drugs they could fit in a boat with 11 other people, drug trafficking has never been a capital offense. Yes, Venezuela's about the oil, but again, it's about a crazy man who's been empowered for grifting by the Republican establishment. But the problem we have as the African American tribe is we have never transcended the Mafa. We have never transcended the inculcation of inferiority that came from the enslavement. So we have not, post-traumatic slave syndrome. We have persistent traumatic slave syndrome. You look at Mandami in New York, the people voted for him. The Democratic leadership still is shy. Why? Because they have the label on him as a democratic socialism. But what is his socialism? His socialism is the socialism of Social Security, of Medicare. Who doesn't need health care? Who doesn't need a place to live? If that's socialism, then we're all for it. But what we have is a reverse Robin Hood. The masses of people's income is being redistributed to the top 1%. And we're sitting back as if, well, what's wrong with that? There's nothing. If the number of people who voted for Biden voted for Kamala, she would have been there. We have young Black men who thought because Trump signed the stimulus checks that he gave the money, that because his father left him $400 million, that means he's actually a good businessman. So, in fact, we don't even have a language that we could talk about the truth in a way that people understand. People talk about being anti-Semitic. If you stretch it, you might have 9 million Hebrew speakers in the world, and I include Yiddish in there. You got over 100 million Arabic speakers, not to mention the Aramaic people, the people who from Eritrea. It's a linguistic configuration. But what do? We operationalize anti-Semitism as the European Jews from World War II, who are not even the original Hebrew people. So the average person on the street, if I have this conversation with them, they wouldn't understand what I'm talking about. I'm not going to filibuster. I was on a bus one time, and a man was sitting next to me, and he asked me if I believe in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I said, I believe in Jesus Ben Joseph, the African revolutionary who preached a gospel of love and self empowerment. Do people not see the contradiction of a King James Version Bible when they voted on the 27 books of the Bible they were going to include, and not the Gnostic gospel that Jesus actually taught about all of us being part of a larger collective? So this kind of language, who could I talk to in the street that they would understand what I'm talking about?
See, the point of the matter is, who have we told? See, part of the problem is that we've not taught our children and we've not taught ourselves the truth, right? Nobody talks about the Nicene Conference, right? Because you don't know it. You got preachers who have a white Jesus. Uh, we still got Santa Claus, where black people
Ashe.
slave them to buy their children toys and then give credit to somebody with a white beard coming down the chimney, right? And so they don't associate properly, uh, you know, where the resources come from for them. And this is part of the perpetuation of the lie of white superiority. You see, there is a structure of human um, hierarchy, right? That we have bought into either consciously or subconscious. We used to say it in the South: white you right, yellow you mellow, brown stick around, black get back, right? And that same hierarchy is still animating our decisions, even as it relates to who we will even attack or who we will even challenge. When I was a little boy, you wouldn't challenge your parents, so you would beat up anybody that would laugh if you got a whipping, but you wouldn't try to do that to your parent because they had a power structure above you. So we would vent our frustration on people who we saw at our level of power, right? It was displaced anger, and I think that is attributing to the crime that we have in the black community, is that we have associated our pain to folk who look like us, who are around us, rather than understanding how the system has created this manifestation of having less in your community. And it's all social constructs and social design. Thank you, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate you.
yeah. I was looking through the chats. I have a few folks who are on here from different countries, and I definitely wanted to hear from them, like what's the buzz that's happening around this. One of my friends, unfortunately, has signed off, but she did leave a note before she left, so I'm going to read it. She actually lives in Colombia. And for those who don't know, Colombia is 200 miles from Venezuela. Uh, and she says, thanks, Helen, for the call. I need to leave. We have real demonstrations, protests in the streets here in Colombia, and the Venezuelans are going Malcolm X style. Thank you, Dr. Omar, for your insight. Other world leaders are sending the planes in to evacuate their citizens. What is the USA doing? Nothing. There are busloads of Venezuelans heading to the borders here. Flags up, their national anthems blaring, not their president, meaning that's what they're saying, not their president. Real facts that are not being covered by the US media. So I'm sorry I didn't catch her before she left, but she's right there next to it. And I know we were talking earlier, and they're concerned and the borders are being closed. But I remember the Colombian president saying a few weeks ago, and he said it much more different than this, but basically he said, if you come after one, you come after all of us. Like they were not going to just allow any South American country to be out there on their own. So it'll be interesting to see where this thing lands. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Mr. Simpson? Or are you good? Thank you for your comments. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you. I
I,
appreciate
I
you.
have a
Go ahead.
lot to say, but I'll come back later.
Oh, please do. And
You're good, man. Thank you.
We gotta let Mr. Neal go in a little bit. So, but
Yeah,
thank you so much.
man. Thank
Let
you.
me call out some other folks on here. I know Matthew's on here from Japan. What are you hearing? Diane, I asked you earlier what's happening in Spain. If you guys want to speak up, you can. I'm not putting any pressure on you. If you want to share what's happening in the countries that you're in, what are people saying? What's happening around how is the United States being received in the media there? If you want to share, no pressure.
Diane, you want to go first?
Go ahead and talk, Matthew. I don't know if Diane still with us? Diane, are you still?
Basically, everything you
Mhm.
guys are saying is just absolutely true.
So
I'm one of these people.
Matthew's in Japan, just so those of you who
Okay.
don't know. But go ahead,
Okay.
Matthew. How are you,
I'm just
sweetheart?
waiting for us to do something different. Sorry. I know you expected me to say something longer. I mean, everything you're saying is absolutely true. 1,000,000%. I don't need to say that. I am one of these people to say, what are you going to do different?
Hmm.
Mhm.
I mean, look, I'm sorry to say this. Helen, you know exactly what I'm about to say. I don't live there. I have no plans on living there. I mean, look, you just said it. We have to have our own economy. We have to have our own way until we get it. I'm sorry. Ugh. It's-
Hmm.
I, I'm not in slavery and I don't plan on going back.
So how are they depicting though on the media there? This
The
whole
exact same thing that we're talking about right now. I mean, how in the world can we as people forget about the Republic? There's no political parties. They're all the same. They're all the same,
Mhm.
period. I mean, this happened. I mean, need we not forget what happened in Iraq? I mean, this is eerily similar,
Hmm.
eerily similar. And before you guys were using the word kidnap, this wasn't a kidnapping, it was a rendition because it was done by the military,
Mhm.
okay? So that they can say and use some kind of legal justification for what this man just did. But didn't they do the same thing to Saddam Hussein?
Yeah,
They
it was
ended up
horrible.
killing this dude.
Mhm.
Okay. And all this stuff about, well, the oil companies are going to be running for it. That's exactly what they were going for. So how in the world, from these people's perspectives from Japan, can we say anything about Ukrainian being overran by Russia, which I don't give a doggone, to be honest with you. Okay. Or China looking at Taiwan when we're doing exactly the thing that we're trying to say people shouldn't be doing to other countries. And everybody just standing around saying, well, this is just another day, another Tuesday.
Right,
I mean, straight up,
Hmm.
right.
Dr. Umar, you're absolutely right. How in the world I mean, they should have just closed things down, Congress, period. I mean, what?
It has been closed down. That's why nothing's happening.
Well, maybe it
Yeah.
has. Again, I'm not there, so I don't know. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
No,
because
no, no. It
it's
hasn't been
closed down
closed.
because they're on break.
They on break,
It's not
but it's
right.
not. It's not.
Even
They're
our
closed
police
down, but
force
they should have
leaders.
shut it down
Yes,
versus
that's what I
closed
mean.
down.
That's
Right?
what I mean.
I knew what you were saying, Matthew. But
Okay, they should have shut it down.
right,
Brother, look here. You can tell by my voice, I'm tired. I'm
right.
tired of hearing about anything from that country. Seriously. It's like, what is this dude going to do next? I don't know. I don't know, but I know he's only going to do what's next to the limit that we or the people there in the United States will tolerate. And apparently, they can tolerate a lot.
Right.
Apparently,
Matthew,
they can
let me
tolerate a
let me
lot.
say this to you, man. If I want to bring up uh, a historical figure, Frederick Douglass, right? Because I think that we can glean a lot of knowledge and profundities from historical figures. Frederick Douglass said, "Power succeeds nothing without a demand. It
Mhm.
never has, and it never will." Right? That's still true. We have to demand, right, things. Now, in terms of America, and you're over in Japan now, we no longer, whatever semblance of a democracy we thought we had, that no longer exists.
Mhm.
Right? So we are in uncharted territory in terms of how to even define ourselves. We're that discombobulated, right? Right? And so we're going to have to study ourselves in terms of Black people and protect our interests. And yes, the economy is part of, and it has to be a major part of our reconstituting ourselves so that we can withstand the blows because the attack is on people of color. And that's we have to be mindful of and prepared to protect ourselves.
For sure. For sure. I Diana. Da, 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 da. Oh, Diane is here, but Diane, I actually asked her before we got
Yeah.
started. Diane lives in Spain.
So what I will tell
Uh,
you is I've spoken to two friends that are Venezuelan as far as my neighbors go, and I live in a very large Latin community. I haven't spoken with them, but both were devastated by what's going on because they have family there and they're hoping that this will get stabilized, but they were glad Maduro was gone because he hasn't meant any good for their country. So the question is, what's next? And if America's in control of it, we all know what's going to happen.
yeah.
And that's the sad truth.
What's the media saying over there?
I
How are
have,
they depicting
I'm
American
I'm
in
not watching anything on television.
okay.
I don't watch it because I have it at work and I don't watch it when I'm at home. I don't have a television for that reason.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I understand.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Me either.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's hard to watch this. I mean, because, again, Matthew said, what are you going to do different? I mean, we continue to recycle the same thing and just kind of over and over again. And it becomes, kind of a psychosis. They say you do the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different result. It's insanity. And that's
Really.
exactly what we are experiencing, a kind of psychosis, a kind of systemic psychosis in this country where we want to tolerate the demise of a country we say we will give our lives for. I mean, can you remember when I was a little boy, they said we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic by which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. And we willing to give all of that up, right, for a tyrant. Think about that.
Mhm.
It was all a lie, and that's what
Mhm.
we know. It was all a lie, and hopefully
Right.
people see it. It's clear.
Yeah.
I'm
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 gonna
very
let you
sorry.
go, but one thing, and I know we don't know. There's been projection about obviously, this is about domination, and wanting to own and control that which is not yours.
Hmm.
Um, and we know that the major players here, well, there's quite a few. Well, you got Russia, uh, Israel, the United States, and China. I think those are the key players that we're dealing with. Who, some people suspect have some vision about how they're going to divvy up, the world. So clearly, there's going to be, I think I saw something where in the last year, this country has struck 8 countries. It's unprecedented. Um, if you had to guess, where do you think they're going to go next? And I've heard Cuba, uh, more into Africa. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on? I mean, of course, they're unpredictable, and if you could understand it, then something's very wrong with you. But if you just had to
I don't
throw it
know.
out there,
I know that there is no safe haven anywhere.
mhm,
Um, you remember when I said that I wouldn't put anything past them?
right,
That's not a cliche. That's what I actually believe, right? And so I don't know where who's the next target. But what I can say pretty definitively that there will be a next target.
Yes.
And so where, I don't know, but I do know that given what we have seen is that they're not going to stop on their own, right?
No.
And if this country has in their name allowed this to happen, then we are complicit in this, and we all have to take some blame for what's happening in the destruction of a world.
For sure. For sure. Okay, last question, Mr. Simpson, it's yours. What you got? And then we're gonna let
Just a quick comment. The thing we can hope is that you can't fool all the people all the time. Marcus Garvey taught us that the mandate is to agitate, educate, organize. W.C. Fields said, never give a sucker even break, never wisen up a chump, and there's a chump born every minute. But as Garvey said, when all else fails to organize the people, conditions will. Let's hope with the combination of the tariffs and the rise on people's premiums and insurance, which is more than people's income, that they'll finally wake up and at least get rid of this Donald Trump. Not that that's going to stop the movement that he had, but he's an avatar that can do things that, if you think about it, before Trump, nobody would be able to get away with what he get away with. There's not one thing that Donald Trump has done that's not a direct violation of the Constitution, from taking a post office and turning it into a personal hotel, a major violation of the Emoluments Clause, to stealing major oil tankers from Venezuela, the largest act of piracy in history. We don't have enough imagination to know how bad it could get. Our only hope is that enough people who thought it was just us will have enough skin in the game to at least get him out. And then we got to start waking up. But how we get out of the cycle of the programming that we're not worthy, as Tupac said in Juice, I ain't shit. I ain't never going to be shit. You are less than a man than me. So when I'm ready to take you out, you out. We have been conditioned in the African-American tribe to hate ourselves. And until we get over that, there is no hope. We have, as I'll end on this, the late Kwame Ture used to say, we have too many organizations and not enough organization.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good point, because I am definitely feeling overwhelmed by the intellectualization of it all. It's like, okay, now what? We can talk about it till we're blue in the face, but sometimes I just think we over intellectualize. So I guess that's, too many organizations and not enough organization. Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Appreciate your comments.
Absolutely. Good.
Mr. Neal, thank you so much for hanging out with us this afternoon. You got any parting words of wisdom for us before we let you go?
And I'll reiterate that we will only be free when our desire to be free is greater than the oppressor's desire to oppress us.
For sure.
We have been called out to be called on for such a time as this.
Mm-hmm.
That each of us have a responsibility. There's a song we used to sing in church. It says, a charge to keep I have, and a God to glorify, and every dying soul to save, to fit him for the sky. To serve this present age, my calling to fulfill, may it all my power engage to do my master's will. That we, once we know, we owe. And for those of us who have allowed fear to handcuff us, to stop us from doing what we know is right, we need to reevaluate ourselves and know that if it is to be, it must begin with me. And everybody has to say that. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to ask everybody to unmute and give Brother Omar some love.
Thank you so
Brother Omar.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Be safe.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Brother Omar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank
Amen and
you.
a woman.
Okay.
Harambe.
Where
Okay.
black women gather,
Ashe.
amazing things happen.
Thank you.
That's true. That's our sign off. When Black women gather.
Amazing
Amazing
things
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 happen.
happen.
Amazing
Thank you
things
all
happen.
for
With our
Absolutely.
another
brothers
amazing.
today.
I'm sorry.
Along with our brothers today.
And yes,
Abs-
thank you,
Yeah.
Black men, for showing up. So much
Yeah.
appreciated.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
You've been
I
sleeping
think
all day?
conversations going forward for the at this time, and we're just finishing up Kwanzaa, which talks about the community and
Yes.
unity. And as much as we are when Black women gather, we need our
Oh, you know
brothers
what?
right now.
I'm on a conference call. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
as
she's on a conference call.
yes, but as much as we, love our Black women, I think at this point we need to be moving forward as a collective. So brothers will be in more and more of our conversations. And brothers, please, if you have, a subject or something that you want us to talk about, please let me know. And you can, host, you can co-host, however you want to do it, or I'll find the person that can talk about the subject that is of interest to you. We need to use this time as a collective. So on that note, everybody, thank you so, so much. I'm going to stop recording. If you want to hang around for a few minutes, we can chat on, but I'm going to stop the recording. And did I stop it?